But John Heilemann, you hear all of this rambling on from the far right yesterday. And, you know, when it first broke, I was like, okay, somebody's pissed off on the left. And then I actually stopped and thought for a second. I go, wait a second. That's not what's happening. I want to talk to John Lemire in a second because John and I had a discussion. We talked to people close to the court. And most court observers, people that follow the court and know how the court works, were telling John and me throughout the day, this looks like somebody was moving away from Alito's harsh position, and they were trying to be nailed down by holding up this February opinion going, look, it's done. This right-wing, turgid opinion on abortion, this is going to be the law of the land. Don't even think of moving away from this position. And so they leak this at the same time the concurrences, which is the time period we're in now, the concurrences are supposed to start going around. And this is when John Roberts starts working on Kavanaugh. This is when John Roberts starts working on Amy Coney Barrett and says, listen, we're all conservatives here, but we also have to protect the institution, guys. Let's sit down and talk. What say you, John Heilemann, regarding my 15-second question?
A great question, Joe. Great question. Can you read it back to me again?
Yeah, I sure can. Maybe.
Look, I think in my experience, there are different kinds of leaks motivated by different kinds of motives. And if this is a strategic leak or a tactical leak or whatever you want to call it, a leak with purpose, the likelihood that it's a leak, as you suggest, by someone on the right who maybe not angrily, but in a very kind of cold-eyed, calculated way, saw happening what you're talking about. I think much more likely that it would be Kavanaugh than Coney Barrett, but could be either one of those, and that the prospect of upholding the Mississippi law, but ending up with a concurrence, a plurality opinion written by Alito with 3 justices signing on to it, and then Roberts writing a concurring opinion with 2 justices along the line that you're talking about, which would take away the force of Alito's position. You would not have a majority opinion that was governing the case, and so you would validate the Mississippi law, but not overturn Roe v. Wade. That some conservative decided to do this to keep that from happening, to keep a fracturing from happening. On the right, I think that's a very plausible theory. There are leaks that I have heard of in our business, and that maybe I've had the benefit of it various times, where people just act in irrational, emotional ways. People just get mad, and if that's the case, it's more likely to have been a clerk on the left. But if you ask me where I would put my money today, I think I would be more likely to put it on a cold, calculating conservative clerk than on a blindly enraged left-wing clerk in that situation. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, Joe, the 2 words you like best of all. You're right.
Okay, Elise, you've been listening patiently. We've heard yesterday Mitch McConnell. We only played a bit of that. He said again and again and again when asked about the fallout, the ramifications of overturning Roe versus Wade, you all are focused on the wrong thing. The story today is a leak. The story today is a leak. He was offering a lecture to the journalists in the room. You've been in the government. You know how these things work. What do you think?
Hell has frozen over because I think I agree with Ted Cruz somewhat.
Wow. Right down
and
the
I
date
can't
and time,
believe that I'm saying that, but I think that we're getting a little too cute here and too complicated. And you look at the timeline of this, it's been a couple months. How many people have access to this draft? 4 or 5 clerks per justice, some admin staff, probably under 100 people. That's still a fair amount of people. This isn't treated like a classified document. Right. The OPSEC is not that great. It could be a spouse. It could be, there are many possibilities. We just don't know. But the idea that a conservative would do it to pressure Justice Kavanaugh just seems a good way to really backfire and get Justice Kavanaugh to dig in on his original position. So if that was the intention, then I would say it stands a chance of backfiring. But I really think it's not that complicated, and we kind of need to just keep it simple here.
Wow, I'm shocked by a couple of things here, Elise. But I want to touch on the part, something you said that I wrote down here, because you say that it could have been a spouse of a member of the Supreme Court. Do spouses in the Supreme Court actually even get involved in this kind of thing?
You know, that was an interesting theory that was floated to me yesterday that I hadn't even thought about, because there wouldn't be, this isn't like a classified document that it's against the law to show someone. You wouldn't think that a spouse would see an opinion, but if it's in paperwork, if it's something you care about. Exactly.
Like Ginny Thomas, yes,
exactly.
Yeah, well. So there you go. There's a possibility, too.
There are many.
There are many possibilities. And again, Ted could be right. People we talked to yesterday could be right. But, Mika, there have been more than a few takes on why it could have come from the right.
There are, and I think it is important to bring this up because this has never happened before. This undermines the confidence in the court in so many ways. This is a very, very negative event for the U.S. Supreme Court, and the actual draft opinion itself, if true and if it comes to pass, will have unbelievable consequences for women. So here's another take. A Yale professor and former Supreme Court clerk tweeted this: "I assumed a liberal clerk leaked the draft opinion overturning Roe. Now I think much more likely it was leaked by a conservative fanatically committed to every word of Alito's monstrous opinion. Timing," she continues. "This draft was circulated in February. If a liberal was mad about it, why wait until April to send it to Politico? The opinion will be out in June. What are the benefits of releasing it early? And a big downside, the focus on the leak itself instead of the opinion. If you work inside the court, you know that the most concrete impact of the leak is to lock in this opinion essentially as is. Any edits at this point reveal jockeying between justices, undermine the majority and the court itself. Embarrassing to the majority." And a University of Texas law professor tweeted this: "Suppose you're a conservative justice committed to overruling Roe and Casey. There are 5 votes for that result at conference, and Justice Alito circulated a draft opinion memorializing it. Now dissents are coming, and you're worried about losing the majority. What do you do?"
I think that's the most important thing about losing the majority. As you know, John Heilman, following politics as closely as you followed politics, I would say that overturning Roe v. Wade had been the holy grail for many people regarding the Supreme Court. But I got to tell you, when I was campaigning through the years, I can tell you that overturning Roe v. Wade was the holy grail for many conservatives in all of American politics. It was goal number one. And if you think that you've got that in sight, if you've got a majority opinion and somebody starts moving away from it, or even if they don't, you want to lock that down. You want to memorialize it. Right. But I would suggest, especially if you think you're going to lose it, because again, to politely disagree with Ted Cruz and Elise Jordan.
Joe, put us in the same sentence.
I know. Well,
So,
as a Joe didn't put you in the same sentence. You put yourself in the same sentence,
Elise
sister.
Jordan. Well, so let me put it this way: to politely disagree with the Cruz-Jordan argument.
Yeah.
If you're holding 4 aces, you hold 4 aces.
Yeah.
Like you don't do anything. If you start losing, you have to move, and it looks like that's probably what they did. But again, think about how close they are right now to reaching the holy grail of their right-wing politics.
Right. Well, and also, Joe, you think about this. It's true. This is one of these things that's true on both sides of our politics right now. The tribal ferocity on the left and the right is intense, right? So you could imagine that, if you're in this case in the conservative court, what kind of pressure there would be immediately if this were if this got out ahead of the actual opinion being issued. If you're a conservative trying to lock in that majority, as you said, Joe, the pressure now on Justice Kavanaugh. I would say that this pressure exists even now that this has happened. The right is looking at Justice Kavanaugh, is looking at Justice Coney Barrett. And if they were now to deviate from the position that they took when they signed on to this opinion in draft form back earlier this year, imagine the wrath of the right towards those justices in the way that the right has turned on John Roberts. If you're Brett Kavanaugh or Amy Coney Barrett, you would like to say that you're immune, or you're not influenced in any way by the conservative movement and by the politics of this, but we know that that's not true, and we know that that's one of the most powerful clicks, as powerful as progressive pressure would be on a progressive justice in a similar situation. If you had this situation inverted, the clan of conservative judicial scholars and judicial activists centered around the Federalist Society and some other quarters of the conservative movement is just intense, right? You can't be on the Supreme Court in Donald Trump's administration. You can't get appointed if you're not on a Federalist Society list. Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett owe their positions to the Federalist Society and to the pressure of that group. And so, if you're a conservative wanting to lock those people in, what's a better way to do it than hold them up through this, but through the release of this draft opinion,
exactly.
and say they were there, they were true believers, keep them in those positions and keep that platform majority.